О, Закирбек.
Привет, как дела?
Салам, Саша Полтович.
Как Мадлен?
Как мои... Нормально, нормально.
Здравствуйте, Мадлен. Здравствуйте, Альберт.
Привет.
C'est Zakirбek qu'on va y apparaître.
Привет.
And and familia? Normal?
Нормально, все нормально. Рехан, Чингис, все нормально.
Хорошо. Вы дома?
Я дома, сейчас онлайн.
Я дома. Я дома тоже, да.
Ну, Джеймс тоже звонил. Тоже, Петрик.
Многие же сидят на этом.
Альберт.
Да.
Он на следующий год на год приезжает в Алматы по стипендию Фулбрайт.
I see Alia.
Магазинде саламатсыз ба, қалыңыз қалай? Анау Джеймс хат жазып жіберді да маған, мен приглашение жібердім. Келесі жылы 21-ден сентябрьден июньге дейін Фулбрайтпен келем деп жатыр факультетке. Қабылдайсыз ба енді? Иә, сол лекция оқимын дейді. Руководитель боламын сол. Енді на этот раз келем деген деп жатыр ғой, енді дұрыс болатын жерде.
Конференция уже начинается, 28 участников.
Альберт, как здоровье?
Как здоровье.
Хорошо. Я рад видеть вас.
Fantastic technology.
I get to know you the room.
Alia, you recognize my studio?
Yes, recognize your studios.
You have a reproduction of Madeleine and me.
Yeah.
It's
a museum, Kazakh museum.
Thank you. This studio is a studio of Kazakhstan. Every
it's a little corner of the Kazakh culture in your home, at home.
Yes, we can see.
Good.
So,
Беркут, у нас все готово, можем начинать.
Мадлен, привет.
Привет. So, как Джамиля и Фараби?
It's good. Jamilia she is a master student now in our al-Farabi University. Yes.
Oh, good. Congratulations for.
Yes,
congratulations
thank you.
I suppose the mother is very proud of this.
Yeah. Thank you. How are you felt? So good.
What?
Your health, how do you feel?
Yes, good. Now it's good. I suppose tomorrow also, but it is necessary to be very prudent because the COVID is now in. It's very in France and I suppose in Kazakhstan also. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Now we will. The waiting is in seconds. Second rounds of.
Yes, second round. Yes, in France also second round. Yes.
Yeah.
The beginning of second round. Yes.
Yeah.
I suppose you are in your study, in your home.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yes, we can.
Әлерім Қазиевна.
Oh.
Сіз айтыңызшы, өткен неде октябрь айында Нұр-Сұлтанда мынау президенттік не бойынша өткенде мемлекет хатшының нелер звондаған көмекшілер, Түркі академиясы. Сол ЮНЕСКО-мен бірге онлайн конференция болады. Оның үшін бұл кісі бар, сіз бәріңіз мен тізімде берген бір 20 шетелдік, 20 өзіміздің адамдармен.
Қай күні болады?
Октябрьдің 19-ында.
19-ында онлайн конференция болады, да?
Да, совместно ЮНЕСКО. ЮНЕСКО, Казахстан, там, в общем, все.
Біздің университет өткізе ма? Или Түркі академиясы?
Это мемлекет хатшы Қырымбек Көшербаев. Мемлекет хатшы, потом Түркі академиясы, это там все будет министры будут, там, секретариат, может, президент будет, сейчас не знаю, ну, вот там на высшем уровне.
Хорошо,
Фишлер, Джеймс Петер Берба. Соны айтыңызшы.
Хорошо. Профессор Альберт Фишлер. Профессор, the Professor Altaev said about the conference, which it will be the 19th of October. And the main organization is of Turkov Academy in Nur Sultan, and he said about you is one of the main participants of this conference. So, if you know, maybe do you have the announce in a letter about the conference? If you doesn't have, we should send your announce information about this conference.
Yes,
so the 19th of October. The
19th of October in Nur Sultan.
Yeah, in Nur Sultan. In the online conference. So.
And online, yeah, of course. Of course, yes. Unfortunately, of course.
Yes.
Yes. So yes, and it is possible. I will participate to this online conference. 19.
Yeah.
So
because this conference planet is on the highest level because it's one of the organizations, the Turkov Academy, and with supporting the administration and state of secretaries of Kusherbayev, Mr. Kusherbayev.
So there is a special topic for this conference?
I don't know. Maybe the Professor Altaev said about this.
Yes, you can.
Altaev сұрап жатыр, бір не тақырып дайындауым керек па дейді да. Микрофон қосыңыз.
Yes, Professor Altaev. Thank you. So, if I know the topic, I prepare. If you want, I prepare.
Программа будет там все.
Жоқ, ол кісі өзінің тақырыбын беру керек па, жоқ, өздері тағайындай ма?
Жоқ, берсе де дұрыс болады тақырыбын, берсе де дұрыс болады. Потому что это совместно ЮНЕСКО же, Париж, потом да. А насчет программы я отправлю, как они меня отправят, я отправлю им.
Okay. This Professor Albert, this conference initiated also the UNESCO, and it will be good if you send to us your topic, special topic.
Yeah, special topic. So I am waiting for your mail about this conference, and immediately I prepare a little discourse, and I am waiting for the link. You will send for me the link to enter in the online conference the 19th October in Nur Sultan. You will be in Nur Sultan, Alia? You will be.
No. Unfortunately, but it's maybe I will participate. I will participate too.
Yes, thank you.
Ребят, мы готовы? Беркут, Нуркен.
Berkut?
Я трансляцию вижу. Давайте сегодня ограничимся им.
Berkut, you hear me? It is possible. I am absent from my study during 2 minutes. It's possible. I leave my study during 2 minutes, and after you return. It's possible?
Yeah, possible. Possible.
Thank you.
Как только поговоришь, ой.
Yeah, I'm ready now. Excuse me, I'm ready.
Жігіттер, біздің ағай дайын. Facebook болмаса, давайте до следующей недели отработаем. Сейчас начнем, может, заставку включайте.
Так, я могу начинать?
Когда запись начнется, вы можете начать.
Пока нет, да, еще?
У вас так
Так, это у нас что?
Это сеанс, постарайтесь употреблять слово вебинар, потому что вебинар умаляет значимость.
Құрметті әріптестер, тыңдаушылар, қатысушылар, құрметті қонақтар. Al-Farabi атындағы Қазақ ұлттық университеті ұлы философтың мұрасын зерттеуге және түсінуге бағытталған жобалар шеңберінде 2020 жылдың 30 қыркүйегі мен 30 қарашасы аралығында Public Lecture форматында бірқатар Science Talks онлайн іс-шаралар өткізді жоспарланған. Бұл жоба Қазақстан Республикасы үкіметінің басшылығымен және Қазақстан Республикасы білім және ғылым министрлігінің қолдауымен жүзеге асырылып отыр. Негізгі ұйымдастырушы Al-Farabi атындағы Қазақ ұлттық университеті болып табылады. Негізгі осы Science Talks'тың бағыттары келетін болсақ, Абу Наср al-Farabi, өркениеттер философы, отырар мәдениеттер тоғысу мен өзара әрекеттесуінің орталығы, Al-Farabi және ғылыми жетістіктер дәуірі, антикалық және ислам әлемді идеяларын бірігуі. Жалпы екінші бағыт Қазақстан ғылыми пайда болуын қазіргі уақытқа дейін. Үшінші мәдениет аралық диалог және өзара түсіністік, мәдениеттердің, діндердің, тарихтағы өмір салты мен қазіргі заманғы өзара қарым-қатынас, өнердегі мәдениет аралық және дін аралық өзара әрекетін көрінісі. Төртінші бағыт этика, міндет және жауапкершілік, қоғам мен мемлекеттің өмір сүруін, сондай-ақ мемлекеттің басқарудың этикалық негіздері. Бесінші бағыт ғылым тұрақты әлеуметтік экономикалық дамудың драйверінің ретінде. Алтыншы гуманизм және адамға деген құрмет, ғылымдағы нанотехнологиялар мен этика, жасанды интеллект және жеке тұлғаның дамуы, болашақ мамандықтары. Және жетінші бағыт ғылым, жоғары технологиялар және индустрия 4.0. Уважаемые коллеги, уважаемые гости, уважаемые участники нашего Science Talks онлайн мероприятия. Казахский национальный университет имени аль-Фараби в рамках проектов, направленных на изучение осмысления наследия великого философа Абу Насра аль-Фараби, посвященные в рамках мероприятия, которые проводятся в рамках юбилея 1150-летия, юбилея великого философа, проводят серию онлайн-мероприятий в формате Public Lecture, Science Talk, начиная с сегодняшнего дня, с 30 сентября по 30 ноября 2020 года. Данный проект инициирован правительством Республики Казахстан и осуществляется при поддержке Министерства образования и науки Республики Казахстан. Организатором является Казахский национальный университет имени аль-Фараби. Направление сегодняшних наших бесед, научных бесед, я вот на казахском языке озвучила, они есть у нас в анонсе. Но самое главное, ключевая идея вот этих научных встреч, Science Talks, заключается в популяризации последних научных исследований и достижений через диалог ученых и заинтересованной общественности. Естественно, в качестве наших спикеров мы приглашаем известных ученых, исследователей, экспертов в этой области, но не только те, кто занимается изучением исследований Фараби или же там фарабиеведением, но это очень широкий круг исследователей, современных исследователей, отечественных и зарубежных, которые будут, я так думаю, для молодых наших слушателей, для целевой аудитории, как наши магистранты, докторанты, преподаватели, будет интересно услышать о последних достижениях науки, над чем занимаются, над чем думают наши ученые и философы. Формат предполагает 20-30-минутное выступление ученого перед аудиторией. Аудиторию, естественно, составляют не только обучающиеся студенты университетов, но это и представители гражданского сектора, это общественники, представители СМИ и независимые эксперты и исследователи. Хотелось бы также отметить о том, что это современные технологии, независимо от того, что сейчас мир находится в такой неоднозначной ситуации, пандемия ковид внесла свои коррективы в проведении всех тех запланированных мероприятий, которые должны были пройти в юбилейный год. Тем не менее, наши технологии, наши достижения современной науки позволяют в таком находясь далеко друг от друга за тысячи километров, видеть, общаться, делиться мнениями, обмениваться мнениями, дискутировать. И для вашего удобства же хочется проанонсировать и сказать о том, что есть каналы синхронного перевода, то есть этот al-Farabi Science Talk, само это мероприятие, оно в зависимости от основного языка спикера имеет переводы казахский, русский и английский. И по технической поддержке это платформа Zoom, и вся онлайн-трансляция дублируется в социальных сетях, это Facebook, Instagram, YouTube канал al-Farabi Центр. И также у вас всегда есть возможность после выступления каждого спикера задавать вопросы спикерам, можете писать в чат. Сегодняшняя, поскольку наша встреча, она представлена двумя нашими известными современными учеными. Это уважаемый наш профессор, давний друг не только университета, но и нашей страны, профессор Альберт Фишлер. Сейчас я его на английском языке представлю. И также наш отечественный исследователь, известный ученый, профессор, член-корреспондент Национальной академии наук Ситахметова Наталья Львовна. Каждого по отдельности я буду представлять. А сейчас разрешите на английском языке представить нашего профессора Альберта Фишлера. Dear listeners of al-Farabi Science Talks. We're happy to welcome you on our online broadcast. For your convenience, there is a possibility to switch to simultaneous translation channels, Kazakh, Russian, and English, dependent on the language of the main speaker. Today is our science talk directions. The topic is the number 1, Abu Nasr al-Farabi, philosopher of civilizations, or trust the center of intersection of the interaction of various cultures, al-Farabi and the era of scientific discoveries, combining the ideas of antiquity and the Islamic world. The first of our speakers, our guest, Albert Fischler. He is honorary professor, literature critic, popularizer of Kazakh literature and culture in the France, the Chevalier of the French Order and winner of the Academic PAL Award in the field of French literature. Also, he is awarded of the al-Farabi Gold medals. One of the most active researcher of Abay Konambayev's work, he noted the progressiveness and foresight of ideas, depth on the versatility of thought of the Kazakh poet, who at the end of his life asked questions about the relations, feelings, and the five of his compatriots. Albert Fischler is the author of the foreword to the book about Abay Konambayev, Reflections and Prose, Poems, Iskander and Mazgud, words of the edifications, Poems, Iskander and Mazgud, published in the French in the 1995. He also the author of the report on Abay's creation in French. In 1997, for his pioneering work in the promotion of the history, literature, and culture of Kazakhstan, he became the literature of the Prize for Peace and Cultural Understanding of the Republic of Kazakhstan. In 2012, at the al-Farabi Kazakh National University, Albert Fischler gave a lecture, one meeting of sedentary and key peoples of Central Asia from the 6th and 19th centuries. I think is Albert, please, we are ready.
Hello.
Professor, you can start. Yeah, you can begin.
Yeah, I can. Hello from France. I would like to greet the rector Mutanov and the vice-rector Ramazanov and our moderator, Mrs. Masalimova. In spite of the particular situation, we are all going to pay a solemn tribute to al-Farabi. A big thank you to all the technicians who made this video conference possible in good condition. The title of my speech is Searching for Happiness, Comparative Reflection from al-Farabi on 10th century and Denis Diderot on 18th century about this topic. In 3 centuries before our era, Epicure considered it was impossible to be happy without be wise. It is for saying philosopher. In the same mind, in 10th century, the second master after Aristotle, as he was distinguished, al-Farabi estimated that happiness was the privilege of the philosopher. On 18th century, this link will be pushed farther by the follower of the light philosophy, Philosophie des Lumières in French. As the French revolutionist Saint-Just exclaimed, the happiness is a new idea in Europe. It is an essential part of Denis Diderot's, the French philosopher's mind. In this year of the 3th centenary of Diderot, the famous author of Encyclopedia with D'Alembert, it is surprising to remark how the reflection about happiness makes remarks almost similar on 8th century later between al-Farabi's and Diderot's own. Maybe the al-Farabi thoughts has passed through his epoch and has influenced the Western philosophy during medieval period till Light's period in Occident. This search for happiness is engraved in these two philosophers in a global reflection not only on mind of man, but especially of the living man in human community and making up the most possible coherent group. So, the first question is it possible to ask is why this notion about happiness is so in the mind of these two philosophers. Then, it is necessary to remark the proposal means by the two philosophers to reach the pleasure of happiness. Finally, it will be good to throw into relief a certain actuality of this search of happiness. It is in going to human perfection in virtuosity that man must reach to happiness, and this last fills humanity with benefactor virtues. Thus, al-Farabi spoke in his major work concerning the obtaining of happiness, Tahsil al-Sa'ada, as in the Greek philosophy of Plato and Aristotle, and al-Farabi understands the ideas. He considers that happiness is necessary for man because it permits to him to give value to his faculties, but with the condition to realize the perfection in the neighbor of other men because it is necessary to meet them. Chapter 18 in Tahsil al-Sa'ada. By this way, the virtuous city will be able to build and it will meet an ideal community. This happiness realized by this way shows the free reasoning that al-Farabi protects with ardor because he is inspired by Mutazilism, which is spreading from 8th century to 13th century since the founding of the Home of Wisdom on 132 in Baghdad, and in which is spreading the mind of logic analysis lying on reason. For Diderot, happiness is a necessity. As Immanuel Kant thinks that, to arrive to the plenitude of human strengths, that will permit to him to realize a community lying on reason, free with the constraint, with our shutting appreciation faculties, and pull the possibility to realize the needs and the project of humanity. In his famous work, Jacques le Fataliste in French, Jacques the Fatalist, Diderot wrote, "What are the duty of a man? To procure happiness to everybody. So, it is necessary for contributing to the happiness of other people to be virtuous." We recognize here some mind convergence with al-Farabi. So, to reach the freely happiness in thinking, it is necessary that the philosopher does not resign himself. People find again here the evocation of struggles led with courage by Diderot and the others also of Encyclopedia. And Diderot adds in audacity the lines written with the blood, the pugnaciousness of the philosopher have an other eloquence and other strengths. al-Farabi and Diderot at different periods have the conscience that the action of the freeman spread in a social, political, and religious frame where a prince is dominating, and this one according to the two philosophers, must be led by the philosophic mind. The prince will be what is called in Europe in 18th century, 18th century, an illuminated despot. For al-Farabi, the Abbasid Caliph al-Mamun was his model. This one created the House of Wisdom and preached for Mutazilism, a state doctrine, and this doctrine will stay still 13th century. For Diderot, his thoughts are found with the Empress Catherine II of Russia as illuminated despot, and he was persuaded she will take in application his conception. After his staying with her at her invitation in 1723 and 1724 in St. Petersburg. Finally, to affirm that happiness is accessible to man on 10th century or during the European Renaissance on 16th century, with Etienne de la Boétie, a French philosopher, who was revolted against a habit of submission. In his discourse sur la servitude volontaire, speech about voluntary submission, which advises man to realize its hope, or on 18th century with the philosophe des Lumières, who threw into relief the test for happiness. It is to participate to a genuine cultural revolution which put the free man in the center of the creation, as the historian Eugenio Garin recalled. Yes, arriving to happiness which permits human potentiality. But how? al-Farabi showed the way and brought answer in all his work, and his particulars in his Risalat fil Alq about understanding. For the philosopher, it is by learning and teaching controlled by the philosopher. It is possible to go to four virtues, which open on happiness. Which virtues? Discernment, courage, justice, and wisdom. All capacity able to make the man entering the best politic order. Pushing his reflection. Al-Farabi considered that the method of education must be adapted to the level of pupils. Either they belong to common class or to upper class. For the first, the persuasion lies on the imaginary of religion. For the second, it is by the demonstration and reasonable argument that the man reaches the supreme happiness. 9 centuries later, Abai himself, in his 40th reflection in prose, took again this topic when he wrote, "A genuine man of art is that one who knows following reasonable arguments." Thus, al-Farabi thinks to lead the man to perfection, which is the ultimate aim of happiness, in order to shape an ideal human community. So the philosopher will not hesitate in his aim to classify science and knowledge, to obtain the best pedagogy. First, he will put mathematics and astronomy at the Platonician distinction. Then, secondly, to reach harmony of friars and to create pleasure, music, and dance. We can remark at this purpose that at the beginning of 20th century, the French scientist for music, Rudolf d'Erlanger, during the year 1930, will take homage to al-Farabi's musicology, who in his book, Kitab-i-Musiki al-Kabir, shows, as d'Erlanger said, excuse me, the rhythmic going on according to metric syllables of words. This philosopher searching about the music resonance and the pleasure which is produced will answer the French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau, a Diderot's contemporary, to write and to show an opera on 1732, Le Devin du Village. Excuse me. The Visa of the village, in the castle of Fontainebleau. Fontainebleau is the city where I am going to speak to you now. Finally, In his classification of knowledge, al-Farabi will show the natural sciences learning, then theology, and political sciences. These last, under the leading of the philosopher, or at the order of universe, permit to establish a oneness of society and stand in which philosophy and religion together. Built the elaboration, the first, without being in conflict with the second, explains this last in al-Farabi mind and bring a demonstration of it. So, philosophy is really the happiness where as soon as the first urge of man it is necessary to prepare him to become a worthy member of society is really modern. The Diderot's proposition to arrive to the happiness rejoined this once of his contemporary Helvetius when he says, the art of shape man is in relation of the shape of government. It is to say that this is tied to the will of an authority opened of knowledge for men. Consequently, the French revolutionary Danton will strongly exclaim in his parliament in 1792, after bread, education is the first need of a people. All these affirmations are in correspondence with those said a century before by al-Farabi. Because, as him, if you want education permit to men to become a friend of the whole humanity, it is necessary to create appropriate infrastructure, several different types of schools, where immediately at his younger age, individual person will receive, says Diderot, a humanity feeling which is the most sacred. But Diderot prevents against an excess of confidence in the educational virtues, nor rational, because at every time it is 1,000 times easier for an eliminated people to go forward to barbarity than a barbaric people to go by one step to civilization. In Encyclopedia, written under the authority of Diderot d'Alembert, more than 160 other authors will bring their contribution. The aim of the encyclopedia is to gather together the scattered knowledge on the earth in the order of the works of past century were not useless, and that our nephews become more educated will be in the same time more virtuous and more happy, wrote Diderot. Finally, here, Diderot wants to give homage to the works of ancient scientists. So we can say that indirectly al-Farabi's work with his work on enumeration of suns, inspired by Aristotle's minds, then the Avicenne, Ibsen, works which gathered the whole knowledge in his epoch, 10th, 11th century, appears in filigree several centuries later. It is necessary to add that the writing still chosen by the two philosophers to give to their demonstration a particular strength plays a role non negligible. Al-Farabi, in one of his more pertinent works as The Obtention of Happiness, in French, L'Obtention du Bonheur, does not hesitate to speak directly to his reader and is giving to him his advice. It is necessary to be clear for you that before beginning to search on problems, be assured that the methods are learned by technical manners. And Diderot, who affirmed that the art for writing in love is only the art to lessen the arms, likes to use often corrosive humor. So in his work, Jacques le Fataliste, through the fantastic vicissitude of Jack Captain and the repetitively the expression in his life, which are paralyzing for mine as I written up there. Diderot can refuse with philosophy everything shackles the freedoms of appreciation of man. al-Farabi's attitude, and later in the Islamic world, this one of Averroes, like this one of Diderot or D'Holbach, will be beaten because they were considered as disturbing. This puts the author in survey, and even Diderot will be imprisoned during 3 months in Castle of Vincennes, near Paris, on 1749. He was liberated thanks to the indirect intervention of Madame de Pompadour, the king's favorite. People can say finally that this philosopher, precursor, and their legacy are astonishing modernity. Several times during this reflection, the conception that then runs the notion of happiness of two philosophers, still far from 9th century, have shown convergences, which are again obvious today. Besides, it is possible to remark that twice keep again a real actuality. People can say, in fact, that al-Farabi's mind also one of illuminated philosophy lying on the searching of happiness excludes the submission. This attitude is not this one of a particular period, it is this one of any time. To glorify the knowledge for al-Farabi in the perspective of Plato and Aristotle as to appreciate the new mind which doesn't accept submission on 18th century to social and political constraints of this time, with Diderot to require the right to know and judge by oneself. It is confirmed conquered on 16th century with a European Renaissance, giving that people says crisis of European consciousness that is accepted today by nation-loving independence and also the respect of diversity. Put oneself in the place of the other human being, said Immanuel Kant. To understand and to divulge the strength of Greek philosophy, and for al-Farabi to be the man who passed over, that permitted to him to better understand Saint Thomas d'Aquin or Duns Scotus in Europe, as said Etienne Gilson, a French philosopher on 20th century. As for Diderot, we propose everybody to take the gun on the land where you are going and keep this one where you are. He takes again the idea of opening mind to other people, consequently of tolerance. It is, as said his compatriot Voltaire, intolerance converts the earth of carnage. To respect the other, but in the condition to have relation, as thought Jean-Jacques Rousseau, with the social contract, which ties the person around accepted and respected laws. To conclude, watch to actual Kazakhstani space, where al-Farabi is the second master after Aristotle born. We can see that today this land pulls a part of its strength and its plenitude on a multi-ethnic population that permits in the diversity the respect of others without confrontation or division. So the international community is in admiration. In the same time, people can say that illuminated mind today beings for a great part in European Union, which born after the cataclysm of the Second World War, because this union is in the same time single and plural. Single in the respect of the condition of democratic rule, and plural because it ties different people, but they want to build together what Ernest Renan, a French Orientalist from 19th century, called the soul of a nation, soul of a plural entity today. So, European Union as a device, united in diversity. It is maybe the legacy the most evident that thinkers like al-Farabi and Denis Diderot offer to all the people who want the happiness for everybody. It is the award of the philosophic mind they gave both to us, and now, at the occasion of this conference at al-Farabi Kazakh National University, we may say that happiness must escort an university so active. Thank you for your patience. . Alô? Eu?
Dear Professor Albert Fischler, thank you so much for your interesting speech. The topic of the search for happiness is always relevant, and the topic worried minds of many philosophers and scientists. I think is everybody, each person in own life thought and asked himself about what is the happiness and how to be happy. And I think and I hope that today's lectures of Professor Albert Fischler supports for us the kind of answered this question. Уважаемые участники сегодняшней встречи, я думаю, вы заслушали очень интересное выступление, очень интересное размышление профессора Альберта Фишлера на тему поиска счастья, которое было проведено в рамках сравнительного исследования на сравнении идей аль-Фараби и французского мыслителя Дени Дидро. Я думаю, что это был проведен такой очень глубокий, детальный философский анализ, и для наших молодых исследователей очень полезно увидеть, услышать те идеи, которые волновали умы мыслителей на протяжении, можно сказать, последнего тысячелетия, то есть начиная с X века, с периода времени аль-Фараби, и заканчивая, имеется в виду Дени Дидро, это XVIII век, и заканчивая сегодняшним днем. И очень приятно, и то, что я признательна нашему профессору, который выразил надежду и уверенность в том, что один из таких как сказать, креатором, может быть, или же организатором, или, может быть, сказать, один из источником такой мудрости, да, и без которой, в общем-то, невозможно вообще счастливое существование человека в мире, будет являться, представлять и наш университет, и вообще именно Казахская земля и Казахстан. Я думаю, сейчас мы заслушаем нашего следующего спикера, а затем уже перейдем в формат обсуждения. И я с большим удовольствием хочу предоставить следующее слово доктору философских наук, профессору, члену-корреспонденту Национальной академии наук Республики Казахстан, главному научному сотруднику отдела религиоведения Института философии, политологии и религиоведения Комитета науки МОН РК Ситахметовой Наталье Львовне. Наталья Львовна также является одним из известных современных отечественных исследователей, философов, ученых. Она автор более 150 научных работ, среди которых очень много написанных единоличных монографий. Она является стипендиантом, обладателем международного гранта по линии ДААДАТ, обладатель гранта МОН РК «Лучший преподаватель», награждена такими наградами, как за заслуги в развитии науки Республики Казахстан, и медалью, юбилейной медалью также аль-Фараби, казну имени аль-Фараби. И также я хотела бы отметить о том, что Наталья Львовна – это один из известных философов, который занимается вообще исследованием исламской философии. И мне озвучить хотелось бы тему, которая сегодняшнее выступление – это знание, сила, власть, гуманизм, моральная философия Абу Насра аль-Фараби. Наталья Львовна, вам слово.
Добрый день, уважаемые слушатели, организаторы, все те, кого интересует наследие философское и наследие Абу Насра аль-Фараби.
Hello, dear listeners, and everyone who is interested in the ideas of great philosopher al-Farabi. I would like to thank our professor, guest speaker, Albert Fischler, who made a great analysis between the ideas of Diderot and our philosopher al-Farabi. The title of my topic is Knowledge, Strengths, Power, and Humanism in the Moral Philosophy of Abu Nasr al-Farabi. How relevant is Abu Nasr al-Farabi's philosophy today in the age of high technology and digitalization? By asking this question, we must understand his philosophical quest. What was al-Farabi looking for, and did he find? When a scientist defines philosophy as higher science, first of all, he correlated with knowledge. The striving for knowledge, mastering to rediscover the world in the Islamic Middle Ages was a large-scale humanitarian project that involved philosophers, scientists, and theologians. In short, the intellectuals of their time, the famous messages that study in the main duty of a Muslim and a Muslim woman, seek knowledge, even if it's in China. The ink of a scientist is higher or equal than the blood of the writers, open up the opportunities for personal educational growth. Knowledge as a transformation of oneself and modeling of personality in the works of al-Farabi is the main refrain. Whichever treatise of a scientist we turn to, the topic of knowledge is central. The philosopher interprets the discovery of the mind as the most remarkable ability to think and understand the expanse of thought. Al-Farabi considers the unity of knowledge, morality, and faith to be necessary for him to exercise himself in the world as a human being. In the treatise on the views of the residents of the virtuous city, the philosopher links the problem of knowledge with the clarification of the ultimate meaning of education to take place of the virtuous person. Who is he, a virtuous person? Someone who has understood the meaning of knowledge, the power of its transformation. In the understanding of knowledge, al-Farabi is closer to Aristotle, who in his Metaphysics said all people naturally aspire to knowledge, than to Plato. Also, Plato's ideas about the transformative power of knowledge are in line with al-Farabi's theory of knowledge. He insists on the spiritual and personal aspect of knowledge. Plato believed that knowledge is a comprehension of universal models, the universal meaning of concepts, in which man does not realize himself, but the universality and versatility. For Plato, the most important thing was to comprehend universal specimens, as they reveal the essence of individual items. In his opposition to the knowledge of sensual thing in general, Plato in his empirical knowledge considered its limiting his ability to comprehend the world in its entirety. For example, according to Plato, the idea of the beautiful cannot be represented by many beautiful objects. Real knowledge is knowledge of the universal. Platon's concept of knowledge became the basis of a Western way of thinking, oriented towards knowledge of the world in the context of universal law and model, and therefore abstract from the individual in the subject. A new type of knowledgeable person appears, a person who thinks universally. But this way of knowing, as we have seen, has led to alienation from the individual. Knowledge loses its character. The realization of the personality in such experience is minimal. An universal paradigm is being realized in which subjectivity has lost its meaning, but an understanding of belonging to the object of knowledge has arisen. In the end, such knowledge produces an impersonal way of thinking, but strangely enough, it becomes nomological, losing its ability to self-criticize. However, for such consideration, even the life of an individual is a pitiful detail of the overall knowledge process. Knowledge of Plato is knowledge of an idea that is strength and greatness. Knowledge of an idea as knowledge of a prototype of existence provides a person with power over the world. An idea rules the social world, which means that a person who knows an idea rules the world. The process of learning is now linked to the desire of man to gain power over nature and society. These ideas of Plato, identified by famous philosophers, Bacon, Nietzsche, and Foucault. Bacon defines knowledge as a power. Nietzsche associates with the will to power, and Foucault concretizes knowledge as a discourse that instills recognition of power in any capacity. Abu Nasr al-Farabi saw this veiled idea of the domination of knowledge of the universal over the individual in the philosophy of the divine Plato. And in his theory of knowledge, he takes an anthropological turn towards understanding knowledge from the human being. In one of his works, al-Farabi asks the reader, is a carpenter always a carpenter, or only when he is engaged in carpentry? This question is not from the field of rhetoric at all. It has to do with the identity of the person, with identifying the factors that define the essence of the person, profession, occupation, knowledge, etc. What is there is a person that is unchangeable, that determines his or her identity. In all al-Farabi's works, we read a reference to the transcendent, spiritual, and moral. The essence of man is spirituality. But spirituality finds its way into knowledge. Knowledge in the thinker is humanism, and education is a practice that produces and generates humanism. A carpenter is a person who has acquired knowledge, but in the process of developing professional knowledge. He has completed a school of knowledge and communication. For al-Farabi, the main thing in this matter remains the identity of the human being, not the profession. In the process of education, a person becomes a person, but provided that education contains spirituality. It is no coincidence that al-Farabi introduces such categories in his treatise of the views on the residents of the virtuous city as a city that understands a single one, a lost city, a hypocritical city, and an ignorant city, filling them with metaphysical meaning. These are characteristics of knowledge, ways of thinking, and even a culture of thinking. They contain a long process of cognition, getting rid of false knowledge, abstract and formal, fragmented and lacking integrity. But the power and strength of knowledge lie in overcoming such thinking and in the fulfillment in a person of the event of knowledge are the overcoming of the lowly, unfree, and soulless. The relevance of al-Farabi's ideas in this matter is linked to the understanding of the need to introduce spiritual meaning into education and new knowledge. And the second idea is a need to generate new knowledge. The third idea is not to limit a student's creativity. The fourth idea is that the quest for knowledge contains a desire to be realized as a person. The fifth idea is associated with understanding the non-finality of education, its continuity. A virtuous person is a person who realizes his or her right to know, and a knowledgeable person is guided by moral principles because he or she knows that what morality is. In his attitude to knowledge, al-Farabi is very close to Socrates, who taught that a person should not be guided by ordinary authority, but should develop his own beliefs and act by them. Interest in al-Farabi's philosophy and personality has not faded for 1,150 years. The famous philosopher Hegel said that great people doom us to interpretation. From their biographies, texts of their books, testimonies of their contemporaries, we collect the personal context of their philosophy because only in it's possible to understand the problems of modernity. Al-Farabi's personality may not be evident to us contemporaries of the 21st century. Still, it's very close to the hidden closeness to the philosophy of knowledge, which we also understand as the force capable of waking the human being. In interpreting al-Farabi, aren't we trying to rewrite his legacy, but adapting it to contemporary discourse, while at the same time trying to capture the elusive meaning of the scientist's coherent, logical philosophical system? How can we avoid an unnecessary application of modern philosophical standards in reconstructing his legacy? All these questions are related to the urgent task of identifying a line of continuity in al-Farabi's philosophy with the modern one, and it is the contiguity of thought and philosophical culture. Using the teachings of al-Farabi as an example demonstrates the ability of people to combine knowledge as a strategy of being. By linking knowledge to the formation of dialogical thinking, the scientist tells us to hear the other, to learn philosophy from different teachers because the truth is supranational. This idea of al-Farabi is necessary in modern times without dialogue. It's impossible to use knowledge productively. Today is a difficult time. Humanity is faced with the problem of survival, saving lives. Values are being re-evaluated and fundamental values are being returned. Life, freedom, health, responsibility, consolidation, mutual assistance, solidarity, care for the ontology of man and society as a priority. The president of Kazakhstan, in his message, Kazakhstan in a New Reality, Time for Action, noted that we are living in a new reality and it will never be the same again, where there has been a paradigm shift, and it's necessary to define the main priorities for the present and future. This will be the priorities that make a person's life worth living. These are spirituality, education, personal development, equality of life, social justice, and the Cultural Development Index. The construction of a new reality is also connected with the reconstruction of the spiritual experience of our culture, traditions, and philosophical expertise, among other things. And such an experience is al-Farabi philosophy, in which the idea of how to be happy is correlated with modern understanding. To be happy is to realize one's abilities and capabilities in a state that hears the problems of each person, in which knowledge is aimed at improving the quality of life, and in which moral principles guide the person seeking and generating knowledge.
ну, скажем, каким
философский дискурс. И вы правы в том смысле, что на сегодняшний день вот такие понятия, как знание, вера, нравственность, разум, они имеют особый смысл, поскольку действительно происходит глубочайшая переоценка ценностей вот, на глобальном уровне. Человек подошел, можно так сказать, к такой черте, поскольку мы все говорим о изменившемся мире. Очень часто мы можем слышать о том, что мир меняется, и человек, возможно, после вот всех этих потрясений, социальных коллизий, будет совсем иным, другим. И очень важно в этом смысле действительно не потерять голос разума, поскольку очень часто мы сталкиваемся, когда человек впадает из одной крайности в другую, когда его сознанием давлеет, над его сознанием давлеет иррациональные какие-то идеи, да, это и какие-то психологические расстройства, да, то есть это и потеря определенных ориентиров. И в этом смысле, в этом контексте, безусловно, вот именно то наследие, которое мы имеем, да, то есть ту философию, к которой следовало бы обратиться для того, чтобы возродить для именно формирования необходимых качеств, необходимых навыков для нашей молодежи, для современного человека. Не зря наш президент в своем последнем послании, Касым-Жомарт Кемелевич Токаев, говорил о формировании новых качеств, формировании новых качеств нации в 21 веке. И все новое, как мы знаем, оно не может базироваться только на каких-то ноу-хау, да, каких-то новых открытиях, а это действительно, сохраняя вот именно преемственность, именно актуализируя все наши те ценности, те нравственные ориентиры, они позволят нам сформировать именно вектор будущего. И в этой связи вот ваши размышления и те идеи, которые были высказаны в выступлении нашего зарубежного коллеги, профессора Кишлера, они очень глубоко перекликаются и, ну, можно сказать, дают пищу для размышления, для того, чтобы человек мог рефлексировать, для того, чтобы человек мог задуматься. И наши сегодняшние слушатели это и молодые исследователи, это магистранты, докторанты, это студенты, для которых, я думаю, безусловно, было полезно сегодняшняя вот именно встреча, вот эта беседа, научная беседа, она глубоко очень философична, если так можно выразиться, то есть она глубоко заставляет каждого, я так думаю, задумываться над тем, что каким образом человек должен сам себя воспитывать, для чего нужно ему это знание, для чего нужно быть образованным, почему нравственность превыше всего, да, и когда человек может быть счастливым, что делает его счастливым в этой жизни, да, и я думаю, что для наших участников есть хорошая возможность вот сейчас, после завершения прослушивания двух наших спикеров, задать им непосредственно вопросы, на интересующие нас вопросы, возможно, вопросы, которые возникли в процессе прослушивания. Вот я здесь вот вижу, что есть да, но это все эти пожелания, да, они могут в последующем как бы к организаторам можете переслать свои какие-то размышления. Но сейчас есть возможность задать вопросы, обменяться мнениями. Пожалуйста, микрофон открыт, либо же можете писать в чат. Ну, если у наших участников вопросы. Да-да, пожалуйста, кто это? Думан. Вы представьтесь, пожалуйста, потому что не всех участников мы знаем. Слушаем вас. Да? Так, ну, пока, если нет вопросов, мне хотелось бы сделать анонс последующей нашей встречи в рамках бесед в онлайн-формате. Это будет следующая встреча, будет проводиться 8 октября. Это четверг, поскольку организаторами планируется проведение таких вот мероприятий каждую неделю по средам и четвергам. И следующие наши участники – это наш коллега, исследователь из Болгарии, Софийского университета, Тимеон Евстатиев. Вот, и наш отечественный исследователь, ученый, профессор Самал Тулеубаева из города Нур-Султан. По времени также будет, я думаю, в анонсе вы увидите, услышите это. Вот, но поскольку...
Will be announced later. So please follow the Facebook and our social network pages. Right now talks the director of the al-Farabi Center of al-Farabi Kaznu University. Dear listeners, thank you for your participation. This online format is actually a new experience for us as well. But as it was said at the beginning, so all the presentations of the speakers will be uploaded on the YouTube, on the channel of al-Farabi Center.
Oh, bye-bye. Dear Professor Albert Fischler, today's session is finished, so I'm very pleasure for you meet with you. Bye.
До свидания, дорогой профессор.
Where is the Madeleine?
Всем до
Madeleine,
свидания.
bye-bye.
Ага.
Bye.